There are nights that pass like every other night, and then there are nights that carry a weight so great that the heavens themselves open with mercy. Tonight could be one of those nights. It could be the night that angels descend in countless numbers. It could be the night when destinies are written, sins are erased, and hearts are transformed. Tonight is the 23rd night of Ramadan, and it is also the last Friday of this blessed month. A moment like this does not come often in a lifetime. Many people will go to sleep tonight without realizing what they might be missing. Some will scroll through their phones, some will talk idly, and some will delay worship thinking there is still time. But the wise believer pauses and asks a serious question. What if this is the night that Allah has hidden within the last 10 nights? What if this is Laylatul Qadr? This night carries a promise that is almost beyond human imagination. A single night that is better than 1,000 months. More than 80 years of worship in just a few hours. Imagine standing before Allah tonight with a heart full of sincerity, knowing that the reward of those few moments could outweigh a lifetime of deeds. And the reality is this: no one knows for certain which night it is. That is why the believer approaches every odd night with urgency, humility, and hope. Tonight could be that night. When the last 10 nights of Ramadan arrive, the atmosphere of the believer's heart changes. There is a sense of urgency, a quiet realization that the most valuable moments of the entire year have begun. Among these nights are the odd nights, 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, and 29th. Nights that carry the possibility of being the most powerful night a human being could ever witness. The 23rd night stands among them as a night filled with immense hope. Because no one knows exactly which night holds the secret of Laylatul Qadr. This uncertainty is not a coincidence, it is wisdom. It is a divine invitation for believers to search, to strive, and to remain spiritually awake rather than becoming comfortable with a single moment of effort. Imagine for a moment what it means for a single night to carry a reward greater than more than 80 years of worship. Human beings live their entire lives trying to gather good deeds, hoping that the scales on the day of judgment will be heavy with righteousness. Yet Allah, in His mercy, placed within Ramadan a night that compresses decades of reward into just a few hours. This means that tonight, if it happens to be Laylatul Qadr, the prayer you stand in, the tears you shed, the words of repentance you whisper could carry a weight that equals a lifetime of devotion. The mind struggles to fully grasp the magnitude of that opportunity. The wisdom behind hiding Laylatul Qadr among the odd nights is profound. If the exact night were known with certainty, many people might wait for that specific night and neglect the others. Instead, the believer is called to remain spiritually alert across multiple nights, building a rhythm of worship that deepens sincerity and strengthens the connection with Allah. The 23rd night becomes part of this sacred search, a night where the heart asks quietly, could this be the night that Allah has chosen? History reminds us that many companions of the Prophet held a strong hope that the 23rd night could be Laylatul Qadr. They treated it with seriousness and dedication, increasing their prayers and seeking forgiveness with hearts full of expectation. They understood something important about divine opportunities. They are not always announced loudly, but they are recognized by those who are attentive and spiritually aware. The believer who recognizes the value of these nights does not approach them casually but with determination. Knowing that moments like these do not come frequently in a lifetime, think about the contrast between two people on a night like this. One person treats the night like any other night of the year. They allow it to pass through sleep, distraction, or meaningless conversation. Hours slip away quietly, and before they realize it, the opportunity has already disappeared. Another person, however, stands in prayer even when they feel tired, raises their hands in supplication even when words feel difficult, and opens the Quran seeking guidance and closeness to their Lord. To the outside world, these actions might seem small, but in the unseen world of reward, those moments could carry the weight of decades. The 23rd night holds a special emotional weight because it comes at a time when Ramadan itself is beginning to slip away. The believer starts to feel the gentle sadness knowing that this sacred month will soon depart. That awareness awakens something inside the heart, a desire not to waste what remains. Each odd night becomes precious, each prayer becomes meaningful, each moment of remembrance becomes valuable. Tonight becomes a doorway that might lead to a reward beyond imagination. There is also something deeply personal about the search for Laylatul Qadr. Every believer arrives at this night carrying private struggles, private regrets, and private hopes. Some come with hearts heavy from mistakes they wish they could erase. Others come with worries about the future, uncertain about what lies ahead. Laylatul Qadr is not just about reward, it is about transformation. It is about the possibility that a person could walk into the night burdened with sins and walk out forgiven, purified, and spiritually renewed. This is why the believer does not look at the 23rd night as just another date on the calendar. It is approached with anticipation and humility. The heart whispers prayers that may never be spoken aloud during the rest of the year. The soul slows down and begins to listen more carefully. The prayer feels heavier with meaning. The prayer feels deeper with sincerity. Even silence begins to carry a sense of closeness to Allah. And somewhere in the unseen world, the angels descend by the command of their Lord, filling the night with peace, mercy, and blessings that cannot be measured by human standards. The believer stands in that moment aware that something extraordinary could be unfolding, aware that tonight could be the night when the doors of forgiveness open wider than ever before, aware that the smallest act of worship could carry a reward greater than an entire lifetime of ordinary days. There are moments in life when the value of time becomes clear. A person can work for years trying to achieve something meaningful, investing effort, patience, and sacrifice just to reach a single goal. Yet Allah, in His infinite mercy, has placed within the calendar of a believer a night whose value surpasses the effort of an entire lifetime. The reality of Laylatul Qadr introduces a concept that the human mind finds almost impossible to fully comprehend: a single night that is better than 1,000 months. 1,000 months is more than 83 years. For many people, that number represents the length of an entire lifetime. Think about what that means for a moment. The average person hopes to live long enough to perform good deeds for decades, praying regularly, giving charity, seeking forgiveness, and trying to build a record of righteousness that will benefit them in the hereafter. But Allah, out of His compassion for humanity, created a night where the reward of sincere worship surpasses the reward of more than 80 years of devotion. In a world where every second seems to pass quickly, Allah has created a moment where time itself feels multiplied with divine generosity. This means that the prayer performed during this night carries a weight far greater than what the eye can see. A few units of prayer offered with sincerity may outweigh thousands of prayers performed on ordinary nights. A few minutes spent in sincere repentance could erase a history of mistakes and sins. The simple act of raising one's hands in dua, whispering words of humility before Allah, could become a moment that changes the direction of a person's destiny. The value of this night is not measured by the clock on the wall, but by the immeasurable reward promised by Allah. Human beings often underestimate small moments. We assume that change requires long periods of time, years of effort, or extraordinary actions. But Laylatul Qadr teaches something very different. It teaches that when Allah places His blessing on a moment, that moment becomes powerful beyond imagination. Just as a tiny seed can grow into a massive tree, a small act performed during this sacred night can grow into a reward that spans beyond a lifetime. Consider how many people spend their lives wishing they had more time. They wish they could return to the past and fix mistakes they made, or they wish they had started their journey toward Allah earlier in life. Some people feel regret because they spent years distracted by worldly matters, forgetting their spiritual responsibilities. Laylatul Qadr arrives like a divine opportunity, almost like a door opened by mercy itself, allowing a person to make up for lost time. It is as though Allah is telling His servants that even if they feel late in their journey, the door of mercy is still open wider than they could ever imagine. The beauty of this night lies in the sincerity of the heart. It is not about how long a person has been religious, how much knowledge they possess, or how perfect their past has been. What matters is the honesty of the moment when a servant turns toward their Lord. A person who stands in prayer during this night with humility, acknowledging their weaknesses and seeking forgiveness, could receive rewards that change their spiritual record forever. A heart that cries sincerely for forgiveness during these hours could experience a transformation that years of routine worship might not achieve. There is also a deep emotional aspect to realizing the value of one night. The believer begins to see time differently. Instead of allowing hours to slip away unnoticed, each moment becomes precious. The quiet moments of the night become an opportunity to connect with Allah without distraction. The stillness of the darkness becomes a space where the heart can speak honestly with its Creator. Every verse of the Quran recited feels heavier with meaning. Every prostration feels deeper with humility. Every whispered dua carries a hope that this could be the moment when Allah's mercy embraces the soul. What makes this night even more extraordinary is that its reward is not limited to one type of worship. Every sincere act becomes valuable. Reciting the Quran becomes a source of immense reward. Offering voluntary prayers becomes a pathway to closeness with Allah. Seeking forgiveness becomes a cleansing of the soul. Giving charity, even if it is small, becomes an act that could carry the reward of decades. Even simple remembrance of Allah, repeating words of praise and gratitude, becomes something powerful when performed during these sacred hours. Many people spend their lives chasing opportunities that promise success, wealth, or recognition. They wake up early, work tirelessly, and sacrifice their time and energy hoping to achieve something valuable. Yet Laylatul Qadr offers an opportunity far greater than any worldly achievement. It offers a chance to secure a reward that will remain long after this world fades away. It offers a moment where a person can invest a few hours and receive the reward of a lifetime of devotion. The believer who truly understands the value of this night begins to approach it with a sense of awe. The heart becomes aware that these hours are not ordinary hours. They are moments filled with divine mercy, moments where the doors of forgiveness remain wide open, moments where the unseen world is filled with angels carrying blessings and peace. The quiet prayer offered in the depth of the night becomes more than just an act of worship. It becomes a conversation between the servant and the Lord of the heavens. And as the night continues to pass, the believer remains conscious of a powerful possibility. Each prostration could be recorded with a reward greater than 80 years of worship. Each sincere tear shed for the sake of Allah could outweigh decades of ordinary deeds. Each word of repentance whispered in humility could be the moment when a lifetime of sins is erased, replaced by a record filled with mercy and forgiveness. One of the most painful realities about Laylatul Qadr is not that it is hidden, but that many people allow it to pass by without recognizing its value. The night that carries rewards greater than 1,000 months quietly arrives every year, yet countless hearts remain unaware, distracted, or spiritually asleep. It is not because the opportunity is small, and it is not because the mercy of Allah is limited. Rather, it is because the human heart can become overwhelmed by the noise of life, allowing something priceless to slip away unnoticed. Distraction has become one of the greatest barriers between people and moments of divine opportunity. The modern world constantly pulls the attention of the mind in 1,000 directions. Phones glow in the darkness of the night, notifications continue endlessly, conversations drift toward meaningless topics, and hours disappear without purpose. A night that could have been filled with prayer, remembrance, and sincere repentance slowly dissolves into ordinary activity. By the time a person realizes how quickly the hours passed, the opportunity may already be gone. Another reason many people miss Laylatul Qadr is the quiet trap of spiritual laziness. Ramadan begins with excitement and determination. The first days are filled with energy, motivation, and strong intentions to worship more than usual. But as the days pass, fatigue begins to settle in. The body becomes tired from fasting. Daily responsibilities continue, and the mind begins to look for comfort rather than effort. When the last 10 nights finally arrive, the very moment when the believers should increase their worship, many people instead reduce their effort, convincing themselves that rest can come first. There is also the danger of assuming that there will always be another chance. A person might say to themselves that if tonight is not Laylatul Qadr, there are still other nights remaining. This thinking slowly pushes urgency out of the heart. The believer delays worship, telling themselves they will try harder tomorrow night or the night after. But time does not wait for anyone. Each night passes once and never returns again. A moment of opportunity that disappears cannot be reclaimed, and the value of that moment may never be fully realized. Some people also miss Laylatul Qadr because their hearts have become too attached to worldly concerns. Even during the blessed nights of Ramadan, the mind continues to wander toward work, money, social matters, or personal worries. The body may be present in prayer, but the heart is somewhere else entirely. True presence in worship requires a conscious effort to step away from the noise of daily life and enter a space of sincerity and focus. Without that effort, the night may pass with only a small fraction of the blessing that could have been received. Another hidden reason people miss this powerful night is the feeling of unworthiness. Some individuals carry a heavy sense of guilt from their past mistakes. They look at their lives and think about the sins they have committed, the prayers they have missed, and the years they may have spent far from Allah. This feeling sometimes creates a quiet voice inside their hearts telling them that they are not worthy of such a great night. Instead of running toward Allah with repentance, They step back in hesitation, believing that mercy belongs to others but not to them. This misunderstanding quietly robs people of hope. Laylatul Qadr was not created for perfect people. It was created for human beings, people who struggle, people who fall into mistakes, people who need forgiveness and mercy. The doors of this night are open precisely because human beings are imperfect. A person who turns toward Allah sincerely during these hours may find that the mercy waiting for them is far greater than the sins they fear. Another reason some people miss Laylatul Qadr is that they underestimate the power of small acts of worship. They imagine that they must perform something extraordinary or dramatic for their worship to be meaningful. If they feel tired and cannot stand in long prayers, they assume that the night has little value for them. If they cannot recite large portions of the Quran, they think their efforts are too small to matter. This thinking quietly discourages them from trying at all. In reality, Allah looks at sincerity rather than size. A few verses of the Quran recited with reflection can carry immense reward. A short prayer performed with humility can weigh heavily on the scale of good deeds. A quiet moment of sincere repentance, where the heart turns toward Allah with honesty, can transform a person's spiritual condition completely. The problem is not that the acts are too small. The problem is that many people fail to realize how powerful even the smallest act becomes when performed during a night blessed by Allah. Sometimes people miss Laylatul Qadr simply because they are not paying attention to the passing of time. Life moves quickly, and Ramadan itself seems to arrive and leave faster every year. A person may spend the early days thinking they still have plenty of time left in the month. Suddenly, the last 10 nights appear, and before they realize it, those nights are disappearing one by one. The realization that Ramadan is leaving can come too late for those who were not spiritually prepared. There is also the quiet influence of habit. Human beings are creatures of routine, and many people carry their normal habits into the nights of Ramadan without making meaningful changes. If a person is used to spending their nights in entertainment, casual conversation, or sleep, those habits may continue even when a night of immense spiritual value arrives. Breaking those patterns requires conscious awareness and a willingness to step outside comfort. The tragedy of missing Laylatul Qadr is not something that can be easily measured in worldly terms. When a person loses money, they can calculate the amount and try to recover it later. When someone misses an important opportunity in their career, another opportunity may appear in the future. But the opportunity of a single Laylatul Qadr is unique. Its reward cannot be recreated by ordinary days and nights, and its blessing cannot be duplicated once the moment has passed. There is something deeply emotional about the last Friday of Ramadan. It carries a feeling that is difficult to describe, a mixture of gratitude, reflection, and quiet sadness. At the beginning of the month, Ramadan seems long and full of days ahead. People make plans, set goals, and promise themselves that this Ramadan will be different. They intend to pray more, read more Quran, seek more forgiveness, and become closer to Allah. But as the days pass, the reality slowly becomes clear that Ramadan does not stay forever. The final Friday arrives as a gentle reminder that the blessed month is nearing its departure. For believers, Friday itself already holds a special place in the week. It is a day filled with blessings, a day when hearts gather in the remembrance of Allah, a day when the community stands together in prayer. When that sacred day appears within the final days of Ramadan, its meaning feels even heavier. The last Friday becomes more than just a weekly moment of worship. It becomes a spiritual milestone in the journey of the month. It reminds the believer that the opportunity of Ramadan is almost gone, and that whatever remains must be cherished with urgency and sincerity. The atmosphere of the last Friday often carries a sense of reflection. Many people begin to think about how they spent the earlier days of Ramadan. Some feel thankful because they tried their best to fill their days and nights with worship. Others may feel a quiet regret, remembering the moments that were wasted or the intentions that were never fulfilled. The last Friday gently awakens the heart, encouraging believers to return to Allah with renewed determination during the final nights that remain. In many mosques and homes, the last Friday of Ramadan feels different from the others. The recitation of the Quran seems to touch the heart more deeply. The prayers feel more emotional. The supplications become longer and more sincere. It is as though the soul begins to realize that something precious is about to leave. Ramadan is not just a month of fasting. It is a guest that brings mercy, forgiveness, and spiritual renewal. When that guest begins to prepare for departure, the believer naturally feels a desire to hold on to every remaining moment. There is also a powerful sense of hope attached to this day. The last Friday arrives during the final stretch of Ramadan, a time when the doors of mercy remain wide open and the search for Laylatul Qadr continues. Believers understand that these nights still carry immense opportunity. The final days of Ramadan are not meant to be a period of spiritual exhaustion, but rather a time of renewed effort. The last Friday becomes a turning point where a person can decide that whatever mistakes were made earlier in the month will not define the rest of their Ramadan. For many people, the khutbah of the last Friday carries a special emotional tone. It often reminds believers about the importance of making the most of the remaining nights, seeking forgiveness sincerely, and holding on to the spiritual habits developed during Ramadan. Words about mercy, repentance, and gratitude echo more strongly in the heart because everyone understands that time is running short. The message becomes a call to awaken spiritually before the blessed month disappears. The beauty of the last Friday of Ramadan is also found in the collective spirit of the Muslim community. Families gather, mosques become more crowded, and hearts unite in worship. There is a shared awareness that the month which brought everyone closer to Allah is about to end. This collective atmosphere creates a powerful spiritual energy where believers encourage one another to remain steadfast in worship during the final nights. Another unique aspect of this moment is the reminder of how quickly life itself passes. Just as Ramadan arrives and leaves faster than expected, the years of a person's life move in the same way. The last Friday quietly reflects the passage of time. It reminds believers that opportunities do not last forever and that every season of mercy should be embraced while it is present. The person who reflects on this truth begins to see the final days of Ramadan not as a closing chapter, but as a chance to strengthen their relationship with Allah before the month concludes. The last Friday also invites believers to fill their hearts with gratitude. Throughout Ramadan, countless blessings are experienced, moments of prayer, verses of the Quran, gatherings of remembrance, and opportunities to seek forgiveness. Even the act of fasting itself becomes a reminder of Allah's generosity and guidance. As the final Friday arrives, the believer recognizes that being able to witness these days is itself a gift. Many people who were alive last year did not reach this Ramadan, and many who began the month may not see another one in the future. This awareness creates a deep humility within the heart. The believer understands that Ramadan is not guaranteed every year, and every moment spent in worship is a privilege granted by Allah. The last Friday becomes a time where gratitude and determination come together. Gratitude for the days that have already passed, and determination to make the most of the nights that remain. As the sun begins to set on that final Friday of Ramadan, a quiet awareness spreads through the hearts of those who are paying attention. The month that filled homes with current prayers and remembrance is slowly approaching its farewell. The believer stands at this moment knowing that the final nights are not ordinary nights, that every prayer offered now carries even greater meaning, and that the mercy of Allah continues to pour down upon those who seek Him with sincerity. When the last 10 nights of Ramadan arrived, the routine of the Prophet changed in a remarkable way. These nights were not treated like the rest of the month. They were approached with a level of dedication, seriousness, and spiritual focus that showed just how valuable they truly were. The companions observed that during these nights, he would increase his worship, give more of his time to prayer, and distance himself from the distractions of the world. It was as if every moment of the night carried a sacred importance that could not be ignored. The Prophet understood the reality of Laylatul Qadr better than anyone else. He knew that somewhere within those nights was a moment whose value could transform the destiny of a believer. Because of that knowledge, he did not approach the last 10 nights casually. Instead, he intensified his effort in worship in a way that demonstrated both deep devotion and deep awareness of the opportunity that had arrived. One of the ways he approached these nights was by dedicating more time to prayer. The nights became filled with standing before Allah in humility and reverence. Long prayers, recitation of the Quran, and sincere supplications became the center of those hours. The quiet darkness of the night became a place where the connection between the servant and the Creator grew stronger. Each moment spent in worship was approached with sincerity, knowing that these hours carried rewards beyond imagination. Another powerful example from his life was that he would awaken his family during these nights so that they too could share in the blessings. This shows that the search for Laylatul Qadr was not meant to be a private opportunity kept only for oneself. It was a moment to encourage loved ones to participate in worship and to remind them that the mercy of Allah was available to everyone who sought it sincerely. By waking his family, he demonstrated that the blessings of these nights were too valuable to allow anyone close to him to miss. This action carries an important lesson about spiritual responsibility. True concern for others includes helping them draw closer to Allah. The Prophet I did not simply focus on his own worship, he made sure that the people around him were also aware of the opportunity that had arrived. This created an atmosphere where the entire household participated in prayer, remembrance, and supplication during those blessed nights. The companions also noticed that he would prepare himself for these nights with a renewed sense of determination. The effort he gave during the last 10 nights was greater than the effort he gave during the earlier days of Ramadan. This shows that the final portion of the month carries a special significance. It is the time when the believer is meant to gather all their strength and focus their heart completely on seeking the mercy and forgiveness of Allah. Part of this preparation involved stepping away from unnecessary distractions. These nights were not treated as ordinary evenings filled with casual activity. Instead, they were approached with intention and discipline. Time that might normally be spent in conversation or rest was redirected toward prayer, recitation of the Quran, and sincere supplication. The atmosphere of those nights became centered around worship and reflection. Another important aspect of his example was the sincerity with which he sought forgiveness and mercy. Even though he was free from sin and held the highest status among human beings, he still turned to Allah with humility and devotion during these nights. This teaches believers that no one should ever feel too righteous to seek forgiveness or too distant to ask for mercy. If the most honored of creation devoted himself so deeply to repentance and prayer, then every believer has even greater reason to approach these nights with humility. The intensity of his worship during these nights also shows that spiritual opportunities require effort. Laylatul Qadr is a gift from Allah, but recognizing and benefiting from that gift requires sincerity, focus, and dedication. The believer who truly hopes to experience the blessings of this night cannot treat it lightly. It calls for a willingness to step beyond comfort, to sacrifice sleep, and to invest energy in worship for the sake of drawing closer to Allah. There was also a deep sense of hope within these efforts. The Prophet A knew that Allah's mercy was vast and that the doors of forgiveness were open during these nights. His actions reflected the attitude of someone who truly believed in the generosity of his Lord. Every prayer, every supplication, and every moment of remembrance carried the hope that Allah would accept the deeds of his servants and shower them with mercy. The companions who witnessed these actions carried the same spirit into their own lives. They learned from his example that the last 10 nights were not meant to be ordinary nights of Ramadan. They were moments to search sincerely for the greatest night of the year. They understood that these nights required a heart that was awake, a mind that was focused, and a soul that was eager to receive the mercy of Allah. For the believer reflecting on these examples today, the message is powerful and clear. The last 10 nights are an invitation to rise above routine and comfort. They are a reminder that the most valuable opportunities in life sometimes appear quietly in the stillness of the night, waiting for those who are willing to stand, pray, and seek the mercy of their Lord with sincerity and devotion. As the night grows deeper and the world around us becomes quieter, the heart begins to realize that moments like this are not ordinary. Nights pass every day, but some nights carry a weight that the human mind can barely comprehend. Tonight could be one of those nights. The 23rd night of Ramadan, falling on the last Friday of this blessed month, arrives like a gentle call to every believer who is willing to listen. Ramadan itself is a guest that never stays forever. At the beginning of the month, people welcome it with excitement, full of plans and intentions to become better, to worship more, and to draw closer to Allah. But as the days pass, the realization slowly settles in that this sacred month is preparing to leave. The last 10 nights appear almost suddenly, reminding us that time is moving quickly and that the greatest opportunity of the entire month may be hidden within these final moments. Laylatul Qadr is not simply a night of reward, it is a night of transformation. It is a night where sins can be erased, hearts can be softened, and destinies can be changed. A few sincere moments of worship during this night can carry a value greater than decades of ordinary effort. The prayer you offer, the tears you shed, the repentance you whisper, and the hope you carry in your heart could become the very deeds that tip the scale of your life toward mercy and forgiveness. But opportunities like this are often missed by those who are distracted, those who delay, and those who assume that there will always be another chance. The believer who understands the value of this night refuses to let it pass unnoticed. Instead, they approach it with humility, awareness, and determination, knowing that every moment spent seeking Allah is a moment filled with eternal value. The example left by the Prophet A shows us exactly how these nights should be treated. He increased his worship, awakened his family, and dedicated his time to prayer and remembrance. His actions remind us that these nights are not meant to be ordinary nights. They are moments when the believer steps away from the distractions of life and turns completely toward their Lord. The beauty of Laylatul Qadr is that it welcomes every sincere heart. It does not belong only to the scholars, the most knowledgeable, or the most righteous. It belongs to anyone who turns toward Allah with honesty, a person who feels broken, a person who carries regret, and a person who longs for forgiveness can all find hope within this night. The doors of mercy are not partially open, they are wide open for those who seek them. As the hours of the night continue to pass, the believer remains aware that something extraordinary could be unfolding in the unseen world. Angels descend with peace, mercy spreads through the heavens, and the prayers of sincere hearts rise upward. Somewhere within these moments could be the night that is better than 1,000 months. And so the believer stands, prays, reflects, and calls upon Allah with hope, not because they are certain that tonight is Laylatul Qadr, but because they understand that it might be. And that possibility alone is enough to awaken the heart, strengthen the faith, and fill the night with worship, remembrance, and sincere devotion.